I want to talk about my 5 most underrated teams entering the upcoming 2023 college football season. Now, these are teams that not only do I feel are being a little bit slept on by people in terms of how good they expect them to be this season, but also teams that I feel have a little bit of some skeptical over under win totals that I feel people could cash in on taking the over on. The first team I'm going to start off with is Kentucky. Kentucky last year was a little bit of a down season. The offensive line wasn't good. The offense was really inconsistent. Will Levis was playing through injuries, and plus he was really turnover prone. And Kentucky just didn't really have a good offense last year. Now they bring back their offensive coordinator in Lean Cohen, who spent one season back with the Rams. The year before last season in 2021, Kentucky, under Lean Cohen's play calling, had one of their best offenses in program history. Will Levis, that was the season where he got on everybody's draft radar, and that's where you started to hear the first round buzz about him. Lean Cohen leads for 1 year, and Kentucky's offense is just all out of sorts. I think this offense is going to improve with him returning as offensive coordinator. And plus, they got Devin Leary, former NC State quarterback, out of the transfer portal. Now, if you don't know who Devin Leary is, you need to go look him up and look at his numbers, because he was pretty much the best quarterback in the ACC when he was healthy for NC State. And I think that he's probably the best quarterback that Kentucky has had in a very long time. And why I think he's better than Will Levis is because he takes better care of the football than Will Levis. And plus, I just think he's an overall better quarterback than what Will Levis is, even though he isn't the athlete that what Levis was. He's accurate to football. He's a better decision maker. Plus, the offensive line for Kentucky is going to be better this season. So Devin Leary should end up being one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the SEC this year. This offensive line should improve. Kentucky's offensive line normally is one of the best in college football. They call it the Big Blue Wall for a reason, but we didn't see the Big Blue Wall last year. Now, they had some injuries. They had some young guys who were playing a little bit out of position. They got guys coming back now who are going to be more experienced. They got a couple of really good guys who are going to be starting on that offensive line. And what has me excited the most about Kentucky is this wide receiver. This wide receiving core that they have, I think is going to be one of the most underrated in the SEC this year. You got 2 really good sophomore receivers, Dane Key, Berrien Brown. Both of these receivers were 5-star guys coming out of high school, and they had some pretty solid true freshman seasons. And if this offensive line improves, plus with how good this defense should be, because Kentucky normally does have a really good defense. They should have a really good front 7. Their secondary is a little bit of a concern, but overall, Mark Stoops just gets a lot out of the defense. So this offense improving this season with their offensive coordinator coming back, getting Devin Leary from the transfer portal, I think that Kentucky is going to be really good this season. And I think they're being incredibly underrated. Vegas has them with an over-under win total of 6.5, but I think they can easily get to 8 wins this year. Maybe 10. Kansas comes in at number 4. Yes, people, Kansas. We're not talking about college hoops. We're talking about college football. A lot of y'all quickly forgot about Kansas. Out of their starting quarterback, Jalen Daniels, got injured. Before he went down with that injury, Kansas was 5-0. And he was a legitimate Heisman contender. Now, with him coming back and them returning 91% of their offensive production from last year and 80% on defense, this is going to be one of the better teams in the Big 12 this year. And I think that they have a really good chance at being able to win this conference this year. We keep hearing about Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas State's chances of winning the Big 12 this year, but Kansas is being really overlooked. Now, I don't think Kansas has been getting a lot of disrespect. I do think that people feel that Kansas is going to be a solid team this year. A lot of predictions that I've been seeing have them at 8 wins, but this team could be way better than 8 wins. This could be a potential New Year's 6 bowl game kind of team. Lance Leopold has done a really good job turning around this program, and this roster is really good. They're going to have a really fantastic offensive line. This defense should be better than what it was last year. Kansas is being severely slept on this year. I think they have the third best chance to win the Big 12 this year, behind Texas and Kansas State. I think they got a better shot at winning this conference than what Oklahoma does. I think that Oklahoma, their roster still is a little bit of in flux. I like Kansas. They got a great quarterback, one of the most underrated quarterbacks going into this season, and one of my sleeper picks to win the Heisman Trophy this year. So Kansas, I think, is really being overlooked by a lot of people. You look at the fact that, yeah, they started out hot, but then they ended with the 6-7 record. But you got to look at the injury to Jalen Daniels. When he's healthy, this is a really scary team. And with everything that they have coming back, this could be one of those storybook kind of seasons for Kansas. Because every single year in college football, you guys already know who follow the sport, we always have a team or two that kind of comes out of nowhere. They become the college football sweethearts that everybody roots for, like TCU last season. Kansas could very well be one of those teams. Look out for them. Do not sleep on the Kansas Jayhawks when it comes to college football this year. Arizona comes in at number 3. Now, I'm a little surprised that nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, is talking about how Arizona could potentially have a breakthrough season. And it's funny how everybody's talking about Texas Tech breaking through, but you look at what Jedd Fisch has done at Arizona so far, they have a really good future ahead of them. They got an over-under win total of 5.5. Some websites have them at 5. But I think that Arizona is most definitely a bowl caliber team. And I have them winning around 7 to maybe 8 games this year. First of all, you're going to have one of the better quarterbacks in this conference in Jayden de Laura, who is really overlooked. We know about Shedeur, we know about Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and Caleb Williams, but Jayden de Laura is a really solid quarterback. He can extend plays. I think that he's pretty accurate with the football. And even though they did lose one of their best receivers to USC, they still have a really crowded wide receiver room that has plenty of talent. So this is going to be an explosive offense. Now, they probably won't play much defense. As a matter of fact, out of all the teams that I have on this list, they probably have the worst defense out of all of them. But they did use the transfer portal pretty heavy to address that side of the football. They got a lot of transfers on that side of the ball, including former Oregon transfer Justin Flo, who's going to be starting at linebacker for them this year. So Arizona, even if they don't have a good defense this year, once again, I think that this offense is good enough for them to win 6-7 games. And if they can get solid or serviceable defense this year, this could be an 8-win team or more, because their offensive line is really good. You just got to figure out what are going to be your weaknesses on defense and find out how to address them. And I think Arizona potentially could be an 8-win team or better. But if I had to give you a realistic prediction for Arizona, I got this team winning 7 games this year. And I think they deserve to be on this list with the fact that they only have a win total of 4.5 to 5. Keep your eyes out on Jedd Fisch and the Arizona Wildcats football program, because I believe that they're a team on the rise. Texas A&M is coming in at number 2. Now, you're probably saying that I'm cheating for putting Texas A&M on this list, because I don't think anybody's sleeping on Texas A&M for real. I don't see too many people who think that Texas A&M is going to have another season like what they did last year. But the reason why I got them on this list is because, yeah, people think they're going to be solid, they're going to bounce back, but I think Texas A&M is going to be able to challenge for the SEC West this year. And I don't mean they're going to be competing for 3rd place or 2nd place. Like, I legitimately believe that they are good enough to be able to compete with LSU, Alabama, and potentially win the SEC West this year and face off against Georgia in the SEC championship game if the Bobby Petrino hiring works out. you guys are sleeping on Texas A&M. This was a team that had one of the best rosters in all of college football last season. They were the fourth most talented team in college football in 2022, according to the 247 Sports Team Talent Composite Rankings. You forget that Texas A&M has brought in some of their best recruiting classes in school history over the last couple of years. Most of those guys are still on this squad. They're going to have an incredible defense. Their defensive line is going to be scary. If you thought that Georgia had some monsters on the defensive line, wait until you start seeing guys like Shamir Turner start to break out this year. Their offensive line is experienced. They got plenty of talent at receiver and running back. Connor Wigman showed a lot of promise during his freshman season. And Bobby Petrino is somebody who's been around the block for hell of years. He turned Lamar Jackson into a Heisman Trophy contender. Ryan Mallett was really good. RIP to him. Under Bobby Petrino's coaching, Texas A&M is going to be a legitimate threat for making it to the college football playoffs this year. I think that this is a dark horse college football playoff contender, and I also believe that they're going to be able to contend for the SEC West this year. Stop sleeping on Texas A&M. And lastly, I got to go with the Colorado bus, man. Like, you guys know that I've been on the Colorado hype train ever since Coach Prime first got hired to Boulder. And if Colorado ends up winning 6 games or more this year, I want to make sure that everybody comes back and they come to this comment section. And for those of y'all who doubted Coach Prime, I want you to say, JT, I was wrong, you was right. Because you see, the problem with a lot of people on the internet is that when people like me are wrong, you're going to record it and make fun of it. But when people like me are right, you're nowhere to be found. So I want to make sure when Colorado wins more than 3 games this year, that everybody knows where to find me. Like Coach Prime says, I'm not hard to find. You got Deion Sanders, one of the best quarterbacks, not just in the Pac-12, but in college football. You got people who are trying to say, oh, Deion Sanders was good in the FCS. He's going to struggle at a tougher division. He's going to struggle in a tougher conference. Like, you make no sense. Deion Sanders was dominating at Jackson State. If you don't think he's going to dominate these Pac-12 defenses, where most of these defenses were ranked in the hundreds in yards per game allowed and passing yards per game allowed, I think it's fair to call you a hater. His receiving core with Jimmy Horn Jr., Xavier Weaver, who come from USF, are going to be really good additions to this offense. You got Travis Hunter playing both sides of the football. This offensive line, by the way, is not small, because I keep hearing the narrative being thrown around that Colorado has a small offensive line. Their smallest offensive lineman, I think, is 290? Everybody other than them are 300 plus or bigger. They got guys who are 6'8", 315 on this offensive line. Colorado's offensive line is far from small, and I think that their offensive line is going to be really good. Deion Sanders is going to be thrown to a really good receiving core. You got Alton McCaskill back there at running back. Like, some of y'all need to do y'all research on Alton McCaskill. Now, he's coming off a major injury last year, but his true freshman season at Texas Tech, this dude was averaging over 5 yards per carry and 16 damn touchdowns as a true freshman. They got a really talented defense. Like, one thing about Coach Prime is that he's going to get a lot of talent. Now, not all of those guys are probably going to pan out, but most of the guys who they got from the transfer portal should be pretty productive and good enough for Colorado to win at least 6 games. Like, y'all act like Colorado is playing in the damn Big Ten or the SEC. They're playing in the Pac-12 since when has the Pac-12 been a powerhouse? And this is the conference that most of their best teams going into this season, like USC, Oregon, Washington, didn't have good defenses last year. So I think that Colorado is the most underrated team in college football going into this year. So these are my 5 most underrated teams in college football going into this season. Let me know what you guys are thinking about my list down in the comment section down below. Let me know if there's a team that I left off that you feel should be on here.